Hello, 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 and welcome back. I got really confused there because I set my screen up differently during the previous shows. If you're just joining us today, then yeah, everything's working. Okay, cool. If you're just joining me for this live stream right now, then you've missed a bunch of stuff already today. This is stream day, we're calling it, and it's back-to-back live streams on lots of different YouTube channels. So a few of your YouTube friends out there have been going live already today. You just joined David Joshua Ford for his stream all about companion control, which was excellent. And then you've now come over to my live stream to talk about graphics. Now, yes, I am the creator of a graphics software, but today I will touch on that eventually at the end. But I do want to talk about graphics in general, not just a shameless plug for my software. That is not why this whole event has been set up. I promise you that. But the idea here is to just talk about different types of graphics for a live show, why you might choose one over another, pros and cons of each, and all that good stuff. Nice to see plenty of people joining all day long here. Eric, you've been very kind, asking lots of questions and super chats along the way as well. We all appreciate that big time. Hammer time, build those graphics, y'all. You're absolutely right. And we are traveling the world today, which is great. And also good to see Ryan Summerfield here, awake, ready to go for the live stream happening right after mine. So nice to see you here as well. Throw your questions in the chat. I will bring them up and go through them as it happens. Try your best to put here to record in there so I can see it nice and big on the screen in front of me here. Okay, I'm recording everything. I'm streaming. You can hear and see me. That's great. So there's three types of graphics that I want to talk about today. First is, and you've seen all three of these in action already today during live stream day. The first is static images, stuff that you might create in things like Photoshop. The next is dynamic videos. I don't really like that word dynamic, but it just rolled off the tongue there. So dynamic video, pre-produced video, graphic content. And then the third is live editable graphics. So things like H2R graphics, which I create. And like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later in my little 30-minute chunk here. So to kick things off, I actually want to just make a graphic or two throughout this show. So I am going to change back over to this view, and I have a tool open here called Figma. You can kind of think of this as like a Photoshop tool. It doesn't quite, I guess it's more of a Illustrator style tool, but it works well for many of the things that I do. All of the software I've designed has been designed in this tool. So it's very much for like UX, UI designers, visual designers to work, and it's all web-based. Great tool for creating graphics, I find, because you can collaborate and all that stuff. And what I was going to just explore here a little bit is how I tend to make graphics for my clients if they really want this style of graphics. And what's great about this tool, Figma, is I can pull in things like shapes and text and draw shapes, upload graphics into it, and then everything is editable. I have a 16 by 9, which is a 1920 by 1080 little frame here. They call it the tool, or the name that they give it is a frame. And then I have just created a few little assets for myself just to save myself a little bit of time on this live stream here. So what I have, if I just change the color of the background here a little bit, what I have is a nice big rectangle where you would put some text, and then I have a little icon, a little logo for the production. This is a very typical thing that you might do for a live stream show. I've never used this tool on a live stream before in front of people watching, so it's really fun to see how this goes. But anyway, so I have a little box for text, and then I have a logo there just to be on brand with my show, right? And then a couple of pieces of text here for what you actually want to show in that graphic. So John Barker, here to record, that's my lower third I'm creating for my production. Now, since I want this to be on top of my camera feed here, I want to make sure I set this background to be transparent. So now it is. And this is by no means an extensive look at Figma, but if that's something you're interested in, I'd be happy to take you through that at some point too. But from there, I can download that as a PNG image and bring it into any sort of tool that I might be using. So in my case today, I'm running this show on the ATEM Mini Extreme. With the media pool, I can drag in some graphics. Let me just go find where that one downloaded to. There it is, right there. I've downloaded so many things today just to test stuff out. So let me see if I can find that one. This one. Okay. So I'll just drag that image into my media pool. It showed up in my media player number 2. And in theory, if I turn this on air, you can see my graphic showing up. So that was fairly fast to create that graphic. It's a very simple graphic, sure, but I made it live on air. Go me. From there, though, the challenge with this static image graphics is, okay, well, John Barker, he came and went. He's out of the show now. We have another person coming in. He's called Sean Parker. And he's going to join us after the next 10 minutes to be on the show as well. So I need to create that image, export it down, heading over to my ATEM software control again, finding that image. What was that called? Custom background. I should probably name these things a little bit better. There we go. And then I'll drag that into the media player, bring that over, cut to my camera, and bring that on air. And now I have Sean Parker. And I think what you're hopefully getting the gist of here is that while I can make this look whatever way I want it to in a tool like Figma or Photoshop, it does take a little bit of time there to create this, and it's not something that you can necessarily create super fast if you don't have access to the underlying file. So in my case, I do have access to the Figma since I made this, but maybe your client has the Photoshop file and they're very precious about giving out fonts. I've had that in the past before. They said, okay, we'll give you the font, but you must delete that font, and we will watch you delete that font at the end of this event. True story. So whenever the event finished, I deleted the font, and they were happy to see me delete it. And yes, I agree. Sean Parker, I hate that guy. Thanks, Niles or Niels. I agree completely. So that would be a sort of a look at creating those static things. Now, if you are using Photoshop, you can set up the auto import to ATEM tool. So there's lots of different ways to speed up this process. You can also batch create these pretty easily in Photoshop. If you have like a Excel or a CSV, you can just say, okay, churn out all of these names in a Photoshop file. I like this little demo style show today because I sort of have my coffee, I can drink it. Even though it's 9:30 at night here, I'm drinking coffee because I'm usually in bed at this time. So I'm going to keep up my energy for the panel show later. Yes, so that's the sort of static style graphics, and a look at those. And what I found in general when it comes to the pros and cons of those, so the pros of a static image would be you can make it look whatever you want. Maybe you want to have a custom logo for your show, or your client wants a custom logo. You can make it look whatever way you want as long as you have the skills to do it in Photoshop or Figma or whatever your tool is. And then you can batch create that if you set up the process of doing it via Photoshop, CSV, imports, and all that stuff. If you've tried to do that before, it's a bit of a piece of work to get that working, but it does work. And then in terms of the cons for the static image, you can't really create for example, sometimes there is a sudden break in the live stream and you really want to show some sort of text that says, we're going to be back in the next 10 minutes. If you don't have that Photoshop file, then your client doesn't give you a way to create that on the fly. So you might keep that in mind, that it's not so easy to create things on the fly whenever the time comes. And then what I also find is, and I did a show last week and I found this, we had about 40 people who were involved in the show at some point, and what I was given was 40 PNG images, and I find that very difficult to manage, even if you sort them properly, dragging them in, bringing them into the media player, because we were using the ATEM. I find that to be a bit of a minefield of, it can easily go wrong. You can easily show the wrong graphic. What I tend to do sometimes, if I have the time, is set up like a companion button for each name, but even then that's prone to error because you might hit the wrong button or something like that. So there are pros and there are cons for that. Let me see if there's any questions that have popped in already before I I go any further. Let me see. Eddie asking, thanks for the awesome content. Here to record are using the new raid feature. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, so, yes, if you mean it for the YouTube back to back. I don't think YouTube calls it raid. I think they call it auto redirects or something like that. But yeah, we're using that today. So whenever one stream finishes, we push to the next person's stream. It seems to be working really well so far, which is excellent. So yes, let me see here. And Andy saying, I'm a fan of handwritten doodles. Apparently it's relatively simple to learn. So-called visual alphabet and enriched presentations with cute little doodles gives a personal touch. I love that. From all the years of conferences I used to do, often they would have somebody there who would doodle the talk as it happened. I just saw that on Twitter today from a conference I used to record, and I really love that. We should have gotten somebody to live doodle this event. Somebody make a note of that on your end, and we will set that up for the next time this happens. Okay, cool. And Go Web Technologies here coming in with, I use PowerPoint to make static graphics. True, it's a good way to do it, but if your client has a specific image in mind and you create that PowerPoint yourself, you can get in very sticky waters or boiling waters, whatever the expression is, if you're going off of their brand guidelines. But yeah, sure, PowerPoint is another way to create these things, and you can edit the text in there. Okay, that's part one, static images. Part two would be pre-rendered video content, and that's actually something you saw today during the live stream. In fact, if I bring up one here, if I play this, so what you have here, John Barker, Stream Day 22, these are pre-rendered ProRes alpha videos created by Doug, who you watched and listened to earlier on the stream day. And what he did there was individually take each of our names and pre-render all these things. Now, there are ways to do that automated as well in tools like After Effects, but you need to know those tools. You need to know your way around them to create these things. In fact, I wanted to show you one more little sneak at what we showed off today. Let me just bring it up here on my screen. I am using NDI to show this on the stream here, so we'll see. Oh wait, not that one. We'll see if this works well. So what you're looking at here is my my Mac, which is just off to the side here, and I have a Motion project open up, and this is what we used to create those little countdown timers and maps in the pre-show. Quality looks pretty low right now, but that's just because I am using NDI to send it over to this other computer. I'm still here, sorry, I'm just taking some coffee. And so what I've done here is I've created a bunch of little assets, all the little people's faces here, which you can see. Let me just pause that real quick. I've created a badly named group here, which is the timer, which is just a countdown timer. And then I have the, oh, did it freeze? Oh, that's great. You got the gist of it. Anyway, okay, it's back. This is why NDI is always a bit of a fun thing to use. I have all of the different lines that go between all of us down there as well. So I turn on and off certain ones. And what I did this morning when I got here was I finalized a few things, and then I created and rendered out each of those videos for each of us as well. So what I was left with was this group of files here. And each one of those is a specific video that that was played at the start of each stream. So for example, here from John to Joseph. So Joseph played this one at the start of his stream, and it went across the ocean over to him, and so on and so forth. So I sent all of these out. Again, though, while it's great to do this and you have a lot of time to do it, that's always good. If I found a mistake, which I think I might have a mistake in the panel one later, and I needed to do some effort to fix that. The problem there is that I need to launch that application, fix the mistake, re-render it, and then upload that video to whatever service we're using to host these videos. So in that case, in fact, today I wanted to move them from my Dropbox account onto my PC here before we went live so I could play them back. And I pressed download, and they are pretty big files. Each one is like 4 or 5 gigs. And Dropbox was telling me it was going to take 2 days to download all those files. And I had 50 minutes before my live stream started. Luckily, it lied about the time frame there, but I was a little bit concerned that it might take too long to download. And that's one of the things I find about those kind of assets. Unless you have locked in your show ahead of time and decided who's going to be on it and hopefully that doesn't change. For example, if today one of the timings changed around, I decided I wanted to go before somebody else, I might have had to do some reworking of graphics to make that work. I would have had to do that because we would have went from somebody else to me instead of from who was before me, David to me. So it's sort of like rendering out these videos and then hoping that nothing changes before you go live. So in terms of rendered videos here, they are eye-catching and interesting as a pro for those, because what you can make is really nice videos if you're familiar with these tools. I'm not very good at motion at all. At one point, I learned a few different line tools and things like that, and how to move some things around, and I've sort of stuck with those. So maybe my pre-rendered things are not the best example, but if somebody's skilled with After Effects or something similar, then they could do that pretty well, and you can get pretty far, on brand, eye-catching, interesting. Also, you can have a custom and unique for every client as well. So the client could make something custom for themselves, or you could make something for them, which looks just super unique, looks really nice. People love that kind of stuff. And I think the videos in the pre-show looked really good. I was super happy with how they all came out. I'm happy that everyone was able to play them so far. And yeah, I think it added just a little bit of extra something. So there is definitely a good reason to use them for sure. In terms of the cons for the rendered videos, there is a slow turnaround time. Now, a lot of that just depends on your pipeline and how you're playing these out. But in my case, or in our case today, if I wanted to create these videos and then send the videos to each person to download on their end, all of that just takes time. My internet's fairly fast here. All of their internets are fairly fast as well, give or take. So at that point, though, we're relying on that. And then the other con, I would say, is they often have to be re-encoded for playback. Now, this is something that we find with devices like the HyperDecks and stuff. That I have one behind me there looping a video, as you can see. And that is the older HyperDeck HD Studio Mini HD, whatever it was called, doesn't matter. But to get a video playing on that, I had to render it and maybe even re-render it twice just to make it work the way I wanted to make it work. I know that some people who have been on this stream today doing this with us have done the same thing as well, where they have had to take Doug's video and take his 1080p 2997 and turn that into 1080p 50, or for example. So that has happened for our show today, and that's just time. If I realized that my link on the lower third here was spelt wrong, it actually should be heretorecord.io, which is not true. I need to tell Doug to change that, re-render it, upload it, download it, and that's just time. And during a live show, you don't always have those times to make that stuff happen. Adding some questions here to my little list of things to get to. If you have any questions about that, you can just throw them in the chat right now, and I will happily answer those. Yeah, don't forget to like the stream, and do that for all the streams. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. One of the nice things about bouncing between our channels is that we can bring people along the way who maybe haven't seen certain people before. I'm sure there's somebody watching right now who hasn't been on this channel before, so good to see you here. Andy here saying for the next edition, you definitely have to air one segment from the ISS. Okay, that's a good idea. John, have you ever used Titler Live? I have not. I don't think I have anyway. I'm not familiar with it. Or maybe I am. I'm just forgetting right now, but it's not something I've used before. I should check that out. Here's a question from Joel. Would you recommend GIMP or any alternative to Photoshop for graphics creation? Definitely I would. I would recommend Figma, which is one I showed there, since it's free to get pretty far. One of those like web-based tools that you can use for free. I used it for free for a long time before I paid for it, just to get a few extra features. GIMP would be perfect for that. In fact, I don't have any of the Adobe tools anymore, and I very rarely have an issue with that. The odd client that I work for might send me a PSD, but usually I'm part of a bigger team and someone else on the team has Photoshop. So I would definitely recommend getting a free tool like that and using it instead of heading down the Photoshop route if you don't want to use that. It's definitely a good option. Next question here. Cliff, let me just get some water this time. See here, I have 2 cups, one with coffee and one with water. I'm well prepared for this stream. Next question here from Cliff. Can I use OBS to send overlay to an ATEM input? You can, absolutely. OBS will let you send a HDMI full screen output. I'm not entirely sure what they call that, projector view or something. In fact, I made a video about this. But it will also integrate well with hardware like a Decklink or an Ultra Studio, and I made a video about that too on the channel here. And you can send graphics into that, send them out, lovely key fill over 2 SDI channels into an ATEM, or in your case, if it's an ATEM Mini, you can change that to HDMI and use that instead. So you do have options there for sure. Cool. So that's the 2 static images and pre-rendered videos. Both have pros and cons for sure, and I've used them all on streams today and in the past, and I will continue to in the future. It's sort of like the debate between hardware versus software switchers, which Petra nicely covered earlier today on the show. There's use cases for both, and sometimes one works better than others. Sometimes they both work together. In today's stream, I'm using all 3 images. I have videos, and I have editable HTML based content, which is what I'm showing all the questions with right now. Which brings me to the last of the 3 parts of today's graphics presentation, editable HTML content. So I, like I mentioned before, I do have an application that many of you might be familiar with if you've watched videos on the channel here before. I'm just trying to bring it up here. Yeah, H2R graphics. Here's a little sneak peek of what that looks like. The idea here being that you download the application onto your local computer, and then if I just go over to the website, you have a control window and an output window, and from there you can show all sorts of graphics like, what do I have? Timers and lower thirds and tickers and all that good stuff, and social comments like I'm showing here on the stream today. There are loads of options out there. I'm not actually trying heavily to sell H2R graphics because there are loads of options out there right now, specifically HTML based ones as well, which is excellent. You can try them all, see which one fits your needs, because I do know that each one has its unique perspective. Most of them seem to be created by 1 or 2 developers, and most of those developers I know by now who we've chatted back and forth. And what's interesting is we all have our unique slant on how graphics should work or look, and what that means for you as the end user or operator is that you do get to decide either to use them all or one of them because it works well for your setup. But if I go back in here again and I open up my rundown for this show, I have a few bits and pieces here. Yeah, I have some graphics I've set up here. But if I just create a quick lower third in here, let me just recreate that. John Barker here to record. And I can also open up an output. Now I have an output opened up already, and it's showing these graphics on my live stream right now. So if I show that, then you can see a graphic there pop up. Probably look a bit better if I cut back to my camera, since I'm using gray on gray. I should have thought that through. So what's nice here though is someone comes to you and says, I really, John Barker can't make it to the show, but Sean Parker is going to take his place. And if you can spell right, I struggled there, then you can make that change. And now we have Sean Parker ready to go. Or I could load all these up in advance. Like I said, all these other tools do similar things like this. You can import lists or add lists, and it's easy to grab all that and change it. And if there's a typo there, let's say his name is not Sean Parker, it's actually Sean Larker, then you can easily make that change, and it can happen in an instant. There's no delivery mechanism between ask the client for the Photoshop file, send the Photoshop file to me, I'll change the text, I'll export that to the ATEM, and I'll show that graphic on the screen. And I think that's why I'm super interested in this approach of graphics creation on the fly, because I can get pretty far. My tool, I have set up some ways of making it look the way you want it to look. So for example, if I just jump over to a different theme here, I can change that to be look somewhat different. I wouldn't say completely different right now because I haven't really done much. But if I add some of those borders around it, if I make the small text even smaller, maybe if I change the, let's see, the border size to quite small, and then if I also go into the background area and I change the rounding so there's none, I open up some more padding there, and okay, there we go. I have now got a very different graphic than I had before, which was this one. What's nice about that is I can make these changes pretty fast on the fly, and we're good to go for the show. If the client or whoever you're working with wants to change that orange color there to like a slightly deeper, darker orange, then it's pretty easy to do that. And it affects all your graphics too, because it's sort of theme based and everything follows along. So that's the idea behind that in a nutshell, basically, because you can get pretty far. I'm just going to change that back to my default theme for this event. And oh yeah, and I wanted to mention that I do have a discount code. I know, shameless plug, but there's a discount code going on at the minute for H2R graphics. You can grab that on my Instagram, Here to Record, or join us over in the Discord. There's a link below this video, and you can grab the discount until the 31st of May, 25% off anything on the store actually, but H2R graphics as well. A license, a pro license. The tool is free to use, but there's pro features. I did see something pop in there that I really wanted to take a look at. Let me see, did I put a celebration on here? Eric, thank you so much for all you do, H2R Software Dev, the H2R Discord, and Organizing Stream Day 22. Thanks. Big thanks, of course, to the other people involved in Stream Day, and they did plenty to get this pulled together, and they worked on all their own stuff, so I just did a few little extra, like 1 or 2 extra things to make it happen, so I appreciate that a lot. Oh my, the time disappeared there fast. Actually, really quickly, what I want to do is talk about the pros and cons of live graphics. So it's fully editable to the last second. So as you can see, I'm making changes as the show happens. Excuse me. And it can be user or data fed, just like you saw there with this graphic that popped up. That is something that Eric said a few minutes ago, or a few seconds ago, whenever I showed that in the chat, and I can automatically bring that into the graphic pretty easily. That's the pros, and the cons would be that the clients don't always have the final say. You can make changes. I could make changes on the graphics as I see fit there, whether that's accidentally or on purpose, and all of a sudden it looks different. So the client has to be careful, I would say, or you as the maybe leader of your team have to be careful that your other people are not making changes. And finally, it might not look exactly as you want it to the pixel level. I'm finding that with a lot of these tools is that it looks close, but it might not look pixel perfect like the static images that I showed before. But you can get pretty close, and a lot of the tools are getting better and better to do that. Okay, cool. 2 minutes to go. I'm going to pass you over to our next streamer of the day. You're heading down to see Ryan, who's going to talk about bringing guests into a show. Thanks so much for watching along. And let me see, do I have my music still working if I fade that up? Yes, I do. All right, cool. Good luck on the next stream. I'll see you in the panel discussion later.